Hi, welcome to the podcast of Minded. My name is Roberto.
I'm Alejandro.
And I'm Eric.
And today we'll be talking about flat Earth.
So I don't know if you guys heard about. I've been hearing that flat earthers, flat Earth theorists think that prehistoric animals never existed. That those images we received from NASA, showing live images of the Earth, where it appears round, that's fake. That we haven't gone out of space. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think the idea of the Earth being flat is false, because I mean, if you go to like a place that's high enough, like a mountain, you could actually see like the curvature of the Earth while being there.
Well, yeah, if you just look straight into the sky and you just move your head side to side, like you can see that curvature, because when in their theories, it's that like there's a limit to the amount of feet you could walk on Earth. So like you could walk over the edge once you reach the limit of Earth. So, but the problem is that, I mean, there hasn't been any recorded information of people actually falling off of Earth. So, and I mean, we have gravity, so either way it holds us down on crust, on the Earth's crust. So
Yeah, like personally, I think it's not real. Or, well, personally, I think the Earth is round, because yeah, of course, you can see the curvature in it, on it, and like I think they might, like, this movement started again because of, like, let's say documents that they found from like way back then.
maybe like old scientists, maybe information or theories they formed. It's like back in the days, I think it was with Galileo, right? Where he believed Earth was the center of everything, right?
Galileo, Aristotle, one of
Right.
them. I'm not sure exactly who they are.
And yeah, he believed that, and we didn't have much information. So like, imagine if that information, without being debunked or challenged or reevaluated, what if that didn't go through the process, and we nowadays think Earth is in the middle, when in reality it's the sun. So like, it was like how you said, it was probably most likely a scientist gathered some information and he developed his own theory, where he wrote down that the Earth is flat. So
Yeah, and yeah, just different ideas that people bring here and there. Like, they try to disprove. They're always trying to disprove like different things. Like, of course, there's yeah, like they're just trying to find out ways, or like, let's say, like plot holes. Like, you know, like when people try to find out like what actually happened in, like, let's say a movie or something like that, like where there's this part of the story where, like, let's say a certain character that was important in the beginning all of a sudden disappears, and you don't know where that person has been, but there's clues of it. So they try to connect it. I think it's just sort of like the same thing, where of course they found out documents that of, let's say, early science or alchemy. I'm not sure like what it was exactly, but yeah, they had this theory that the Earth was flat. So yeah, like now that they found that information, they try to fill in the blanks by like proving it, and like, let's say, like, yeah, I think it's the flat earthers, or yeah, the flat earthers, they don't believe that dinosaurs exist too. They were, I don't know, manufactured by
the government or something, or
Yeah.
maybe private institutions.
Yeah, because like, okay, all of a sudden, like all of a sudden, like people were discovering dinosaurs, and they were discovering them like pretty much like once one was discovered, of course, like another one was discovered, and another one. So they're like, why all of a sudden they were being discovered when like past civilizations didn't find them at all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, with the dinosaur bones and the other prehistoric animal bones, is actually people like since they already had like a whole religion set up, and they had like beliefs and like so like there's parts of China where they found like some dinosaur bones and fangs, and the people thought it was like from a dragon. And then they spread that belief like, oh, here are some dragon bones and some dragon teeth, but it was actually dinosaur bones. So
And then like if you see like like in like past civilizations, like you see it in like China, Japan, like, and then of course you see it in Europe too, where the knights are fighting dragons. Like, how did they came up with dragons if they didn't find like skulls of dinosaurs or something? That might be a way to prove it. And then like if you see in like Mayan culture too, like I forgot the exact name of that dragon god, but yeah, there's a dragon god there, so they have been discovered. It's just that probably those people turn a blind eye to it.
yeah, they thought it was like some magical creature, but it's actually like it's a dinosaur.
Well, it's like also what's like it's weird because I mean, where else is Earth gonna fit its core if the Earth is flat? Like it's known that the core of Earth. It's round, and
Like the most densest
by
thing.
as time goes by, the Earth's crust gets recycled. That's why we find dinosaur bones certain amount of feet down into the Earth's crust. So like it's constantly getting recycled, and yeah, if we think about it, where would the Earth's core fit if the Earth is flat? It would have to be round, you know. So
Yeah,
and like where would Earth get its that heat supply, that heat source?
Yeah.
Geothermal.
then also you see every day there's air carrying sediments across the planet, and those sediments get placed on other sediments, and it's just a bigger layer of sediments being laid on top of each other, and then that's why you find dinosaur bones like deeper to the earth.
Yeah, because the crust is constantly getting recycled, and I mean it's been recorded, and it's been examined just by examining the age of the crust, and finding different fossils, and so
Yeah, it's basically like if the wind carries the dirt or carries different things. Like let's say if a tree falls on top of, let's say if you place like a toy, right? You place a toy in, like let's say in a home, and then of course you place dirt, and then you place like sand over it, and it's just pretty much like how throughout the years like just dirt and debris gets carried over by the wind, or it's just events that happen, and of course it gets piled up on top, and of course with all the pressure and all stuff, like it converts the bone into stone, or and it's just the way that they do it. Like I think even in I don't know, Greek or Rome too. I think it's Homer's Odyssey. I think that's what it is. That story of Homer's Odyssey, where he runs into a cyclops, which I think it's been proven that like cyclops are just mammoth
I've heard about that
skulls. too, because of like like if you look at an elephant skull or a mammoth skull, it basically looks like if it only has one eye.
I know, cause like where the nose starts, has like a big hole, and the eyes are very small. So.
Like people are connecting like dinosaur bones and like just like creatures, large creatures, to them being large humans walking the earth.
Then they also like thought that the griffin existed because they found a skull of this relative of the Triceratops called the Protoceratops, and they thought it was a griffin.
Yeah, like it's just and then of course there's that like big war where like two big companies of paleontologists or two big paleontologist companies were competing with each other, and of course they were mixing up bones too, just to say, oh, I discovered another dinosaur, when it was just basically, let's say, a T-Rex and a Triceratops bones just mixed up, and they were like, look what I found. And pretty much like the same thing when like we were like when early Europeans were sailing around the world and they found narwhals, and of course they got the narwhals like tusks. I think they're tusks, right?
Yeah.
They got their tusks and just put it on horses and all stuff and called it. I'm like, look what I found. I found a unicorn. It's just, I don't know, probably to gain like popularity or just to get their name out there too, because I don't know, if somebody found something that they've never seen before, of course like it's gonna pique people's interest. And yeah, and then of course like that, like you get money out of it and all stuff too.
Then also like how do you explain volcanoes if the Earth is flat?
Mm-hmm.
Like how does all that molten rock come out of just a flat layer of crust?
Well, the volcanoes lead to the Earth's core, right? That's where it gets that molten lava.
Yeah, it's like all the lava comes from the mantle, then it rises up, then creates more land.
No, but I think their idea of like let's say if you travel to Antarctica, because I think their idea of the Earth is that Earth
Surrounded
of
by
course
like a
is
wall of
flat
ice.
and it's surrounded by Antarctica.
Yeah,
And like instead of falling through the edge, somehow, I don't know, let's say like voodoo magic, I don't know what you call it, you start walking to the edge instead of continue going straight, like you're walking around it, so you never reach the end.
But, I mean,
and then like it makes it seem that you went through Antarctica.
Well, I don't see why the government would try to hide that. So.
Mm-hmm. And then like I know that there's this like test where they sell a boat with like let's say like a striped flag, and of course like if a boat is going through curvature, you're gonna lose like the boat little by little. So you'll like eventually you start seeing the stripes disappear, and then of course the boat too, because it's going through that curvature. And if you're seeing it at a certain angle, it just starts disappearing. But people, I don't know, they still don't believe it for some reason.
In that case, that would just be the case of your visual ability. You could only see for a certain amount of feet. It's not like if you have the vision of an eagle or an animal with a more superior eyesight. It's obvious until like a certain amount of feet, you could you could have a good visual acuity of the boat or just any object you're looking at. Like it's of course it's gonna disappear. You know.
I know, but they did that experiment with of course like high zoom cameras and like telescopes and all that stuff too. So like they could constantly keep an eye on the boat, but of course since it's going down to curvature.
But either way, wouldn't a telescope be like a high-powered scope? You can't really, because I mean, with a telescope you could see the stars and all that, and the planets. So like, how are you gonna see something from that amount of distance if telescope is specifically made for that?
I don't know, like telescopes or if not binoculars or whatever they are. I forgot what the exact name it is, but yeah, like pretty much, yeah, of course you use lenses in order to zoom in and like you keep an eye on it. But of course, since it goes through that curvature, it starts disappearing little by little. And yeah, they try proving it that way, but for some reason, people don't believe it. And yeah, and then pretty much they say that like the pictures that people take in space are just, let's say, like photoshopped. And yeah, like I think it's I think like even like well-known people like started joining the like flat earther community too. I'm not sure who they are exactly, but I think like athletes, probably movie stars.
Well, I think it's also like how you said that. For example, the T-Rex, the size of the head, and people maybe begin to think it's something with maybe a dragon, because I mean, as a little kid and as you grow, you're just constantly seeing dragons. Well, when you're older, if you see Game of Thrones, you're watching Game of Thrones, and there's Vikings and all this TV series and videos where you're looking at dragons, so you begin to think it's pretty silly. You have this fossil of a head that's very big, that looks like a dragon. So like, what is it gonna be? Like, is it a dragon or is it a T-Rex? Like, it just well, for those people, it would confuse them, and they would just think it's silly. Like, it's phony. It doesn't exist. So
yeah, and then like if you don't know what like what something is, of course you're gonna try like to fill in the blanks. So like yeah, like let's say if I find a part of, I don't know, like let's say a part of a toy or something, and I'm like, oh, what could have this been? Like let's say like, yeah, like I find like a leg, and it's like a it's, let's say, like a muscular toy leg, and you start thinking, I'm like, okay, I'm like, I don't know what exactly this is, but I think it might be a bodybuilder, like a toy of a bodybuilder, or if not a toy of a wrestler, or something along those lines, where like yeah, like you just start filling in the blanks. And of course, if you find something like that, I'm like you'll just start thinking about it. I'm like, well, this sort of looks like a lizard. I'm like, or I've seen a skull of a, let's say, alligator. It sort of looks like a dinosaur. It sort of looks like this skull that I found, so it might be a giant lizard, or it might be, I don't know, a giant, I don't know, Komodo dragon, or whatever, because like yeah, like you just start relating stuff to it.
well, yeah, it's like what's that dinosaur called? The one with the wings? It's a pteranodon.
Yeah,
right?
pteranodon.
It's like that. Like, yeah. When you see the fossil, you see it obviously has wings, because its arms go into extensions, and off of that, off of their arm, off of the upper limb, there's pieces of bones, processes of bones that stick out, forming the wing. So it could be that like people, like for example, that like they could also think that it's maybe a dragon because it has a shape of wings, but
Or not a giant, like they say, a giant bat.
yeah,
Because like yeah, like we see it as like I don't know if they're called vampire bats, but like the blood sucking ones. Like yeah, like we see them as like an evil thing because they're essentially like drinking our life blood or our life liquid or whatever the people thought it was back then. So like yeah, like if you see something like that that sort of is similar to like a bat or something, like you're gonna think that it's a giant bat with like a beak. So like let's say okay, yeah, like this sort of reminds me of a bat. No, it has a beak. It might have been I don't know, a vampire bird. And now you find that it has teeth. So I'm like, oh no, what is it? I'm like, the teeth sort of looks like a crocodile. So it might be a giant flying crocodile.
well, I think where it gets a little weird when you get into rabbit hole is when you begin to mix in medieval times and these fossils that are being found. I think that's when you just get completely lost and your head begins spinning and you begin to think odd things. Like it's like, for example, them thinking that the images that we get from the satellite, it's fake. So like, how do we get our internet? So I mean, how are we able to use our GPS?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't know. It gets a little weird. I think it's just stepping out of the line too much. It's going too far because it's weird. I don't know how it gets to that extent. So
Yeah, it's like what I'm telling you is like how like I'm relating like dinosaurs to like animals. It's pretty much the same thing. I'm like, oh, like they might be lying to us, and there's those people that I'm like, oh yeah, the government has been lying to us all along, and I found old documents that's basically proves that the Earth is flat. So they have been lying to us, like, and they'll just find any little thing to connect it.
so would that mean that they're also that would mean that they're also challenging evolution, right? Because well, it's probably something that they think about too. How they might think it's a little weird how, according to many paleontologists and scientists, that dinosaurs, some dinosaurs, like what, T-Rex, they evolved into a chicken. So
Mm-hmm. And then like yeah, like of course there's been. I remember seeing this documentary. I'm pretty sure like people that might disprove it. They're like, oh yeah, they're just messing around with you, or they're actually mutating them. Like yeah, they are mutating. And, like they're activating a gene back into the chicken, and basically activating the dinosaur tail or the dinosaur eyes or the dinosaur teeth onto its beak.
mm-hmm.
And basically, since they don't believe, they'll try to find out anyway. I'm like, oh, like, what's the name of like the scientists, or they'll go out of their way if they find out that that's going on to try stopping them from like proving them. Because like I know like yeah, that documentary that I was seeing, a lot of people, they like a lot of like religious people were like, no, you shouldn't play God, You shouldn't play God and mess around with the genetic code of the chicken and activate stuff that isn't like visible on the chicken. So like yeah, like you're playing God by adding scales to the chicken or whatever dinosaur skin was. Um, and yeah, like they'll try to disprove them and try hiding evidence from it.
Well, also, well, you know, the animals could evolve over time because before the Industrial Revolution, there's this type of moth called the pepper moth.
Mm-hmm.
You heard about it? And basically, most of the moths were all white because there's a lot of white trees around. I think it was England. And then when the Industrial Revolution started, there's a lot of pollution. And I was like,
Smog
the coal,
and
right?
stuff.
yeah, and then it would blacken the trees, and basically the moths evolved to have like a darker color scheme just to camouflage
Mm-hmm.
with the trees.
And then like of course since like the white ones couldn't camouflage, they would be the first ones to die.
Yeah,
So like yeah, like you see it like yeah, like you see it like and you don't really need that much time or you don't need to go way back just to see like how things change. It's pretty much like let's say it's more metamorphosis than evolution I think, or how like let's say a like little caterpillar goes into a cocoon, then if you see it changes to a butterfly.
or like a tadpole turned into a frog.
Mhm.
So,
Like you see it getting legs because like as an evolutionary like standpoint, it's you get more of an advantage by having legs than just having a tail. Because I'm pretty sure you could travel further and faster with feet than like being like a snake and just slithering around. They still go pretty fast, but it's just and as an evolutionary advantage, like it's better having legs. And like yeah, like and then if you see like now too, like monkeys are using tools. Well, they've been using them, but now we have proofs of them using tools too. Like I think I don't know what monkeys are they exactly. Probably macaws, like in islands, getting rocks and smashing clams, so they could get so they could go ahead and get get the meat, the thing that they actually need to eat. And of course, there's some animals that like didn't really evolve to have an advantage because yeah, they're pretty advanced already, like sharks. Like I think sharks haven't really changed in many years. There's more variety now, I think, but there's really no point because they're like let's say they're the apex predator. Like there's nothing that is really challenging them except for like dolphins because of their bones are made out of cartilage, so it's soft.
and then we also see mutations like this happening. Like for example, like a any animal could be born albino, and what if that albino animal breeds with other animals, and what if that becomes something that animals tend to look for when they're breeding?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, let's say more male fish would prefer an albino female. They could it would breed with that, and then that trait would get passed on. So just most of the fish would become albino.
I think there's those crabs too, right? There's those crabs that have like one large arm, and pretty much like the crab with the largest arm gets the better female or gets
gets more females.
Yeah, it gets more females.
Yeah, and then that gene gets passed on to other animals too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like also, I don't know if you've heard about sickleback fish. Basically, there was, well, it evolved into not having a lot of armored plating, and it was because, well, they got a sample, a small sample of those fish, and they moved them to different environment, to different area, where there wasn't as many predators, and in the area where there was many predators, the sickleback fish, with a lot of armor plating, because it has a lot of armor plating in the inside, it was slow. So when a predator would come, it was more prone to getting caught by flying birds, or more prone to getting killed because it was slow. It's carrying more armor.
Mm-hmm.
So in the area, the sample they got and they moved into a different environment, they survived more because they were a lot faster. They had less armor. So
Yeah, like they evolve to.
Yeah.
They basically not acclimated, but they adapt to their environment by, like, let's say, like reducing the amount of hair like on certain animals, or if not, like.
What was the armor plating? Well, basically, they slowly evolved in the environment with less predators. They evolved to having less armor plating.
Yeah, and then also, if you look at old human skulls, you could, like cavemen and stuff, you could see that they had bigger jaws, and they also their wisdom teeth would fit better in that type of jaw, because they would eat more raw meat back then, and humans got introduced to cooking, and they started cooking food, and since when you cook food it becomes more tender, they didn't really need their wisdom teeth to help them chew all that tough raw meat.
Well,
that's another example of evolution.
All those incisors we have in our teeth, our canines, how we evolved into having molars for breaking down the food, and then scissors for tearing the meat and other food objects you're putting inside your mouth. So yeah, like how did we evolve into getting sharper teeth and having dull teeth for mechanical breakdown for so.
And of course, like, since we don't need our teeth to like grip onto things, like we started losing our canines too. So we started getting smaller canines, and then like we have like redundant things like the tailbone, like the really small tailbone that we have, and then that little gland right next to the large intestine.
Next to the large intestine.
The large intestine.
Gland.
Yeah, it's like that little thing that like tends to explode. I don't know if it's a gland.
It's not a gland. It's
the appendix that like blows up. It's something that we don't need anymore. Probably we used it back then for I don't know what reason, but now it's just redundant, and it's something that we don't really need anymore. It's just like we just stop finding the use for it.
Well, I think one of the evolution would be the strongest argument against it. Because we've seen throughout years how different creatures evolve. It's like it's like also how sometimes you have in certain areas of your body you have more calcification, more bone formation. Like you're evolving, your bones are evolving to reinforcing that certain area in order for greater stress, greater impact. Like it's happening all the time.
Yeah,
So
it's like basically like if you never lifted weights,
yeah,
and then like all of a sudden you start lifting weights, so your body starts noticing, oh, there's
yeah,
stress in this bone and this like joint or bone, so I need more calcium in here in order to
yeah.
like
Yeah.
structurally, like, I don't know, secure it or structurally strengthen your bone.
More like to strengthen it, but because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's gonna be more stress there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's evolution is happening all the time. So
And then also we see like how like some animals they get rid of stuff when they don't need it anymore, so they evolved into not having it or having it smaller. So like spider monkeys and there's some spider monkeys around the world that they don't really have a thumb anymore. It's like more like a little nub, then because they swing on trees and they don't really need their thumbs that
It'll
much
get
anymore.
more in the way.
Yeah. Then also I've heard of like astronauts. Like the reason why they have to exercise a lot of times is that if they don't exercise, um, their bones start to thin out.
Mm-hmm.
Also, because they don't really need strong bones because they're much lighter in space.
Mm-hmm.
They're not as heavy.
but yeah, well, what I'm seeing is that there's a bunch of there's a good amount of Greek theorists and philosophers who supported this theory, like Homer. There's also Herodotus, and yeah, there's a couple of celebrities, but I mean, it would make sense that some people, the people that believe in flat Earth theories, um, it would be a little more reasonable to, just to understand them a little more, because yeah, I mean, we get our Latin language from the Greek theorists, so the Greek philosophers. So why wouldn't they believe this coming from them? So
Mm-hmm.
from the early theorists and scientists that existed before us. So
Just yeah, like yeah, I think yeah, it's just basically they've like yeah, like what I said before. It's basically they found documents. Yeah, since it comes from my ancestors, of course, since they believe that there's some truth in it.
yeah,
It was like pretty much with like stories and like folk tales and all that stuff.
yeah, and religion, like
Mhm. Like yeah, like folk tales, like I don't know, like let's say there's like folk tales, nursery rhymes or whatever it is that say, I don't know, John Thomas was I don't know, a man that conquered, I don't know, Spain or something. And like pretty much throughout the time, like it gets like a little twisted, or if not, it gets disproven. But since it was, let's say, John Thomas is a descendant, is like, no, not a descendant, he's an ancestor, he's my ancestor, so of course I'm like, since I come from his bloodline and I found documents that say that it was true, I'm like, of course I'm gonna go over there and try to disprove people that have proven it wrong.
but the thing is that also, I mean, we have to understand that they didn't possess the tools we have right now, the technology we have right now, and I mean the understanding of how stuff has changed. So it's like the Big Bang Theory. So
Yeah, it's like pretty much you see it in like in the tools that we have. Like of course we started with like stone and then we went to, I don't know, like bronze, copper, and then like of course steel, and then we found out how to work steel better, so now we had even higher quality steel. And yeah, and then like if you see now we're like in the technology age where yeah, in reality we don't really need the tools when we have things that will do it for us.
It's a weird theory and topic people get into and they begin to believe, but it's a little interesting. But yeah, I don't see where they could really argue that there's a flat Earth. So yeah,
It's like yeah, like of course back then, like we were saying, yeah, like of course back then, we didn't have the tools or the knowledge in order to prove it wrong, or we did prove it wrong, but we couldn't be 100% positive that it was. And then like yeah, like now that we could prove it, like now that we could prove that it's wrong and Earth is actually round and all these things, now they're finding those documents again, and they're like, wait, but back then we believed this. Why all of a sudden we don't believe it anymore? It's like how, let's say, it's like how like the conquistadors came and they changed religion, and like back then, I don't know, like let's say they came to Mexico or wherever it is, where we have like the Aztec and Mayan civilizations, and then of course they converted them to I don't know, Catholicism or however you say it. And yeah, like well back then we believed that the sun god was not gonna bring, I don't know, the day unless we have to sacrifice somebody. Why we when we start believing that, and all of a sudden we're believing this.
Yeah, it makes sense, but yeah, it's a little weird.
And it's just like all beliefs that are coming to light again.
Yeah, a lot of people are like going back to like what we know about ancient civilizations, and like they try to use that to prove their theory.
Yeah, like for example, them using some Greek philosophers and theorists, because like I said, we got our Latin roots. That's where our language began to develop. That's where it started. So
yeah, our language comes like from the Greek language, and also comes from the Latin language that the Romans created.
Yeah, well, this concludes this episode. Thanks for watching, and bye.